I know everyone recognizes the blue and white disabled parking signs in every parking lot. But if you're like me, you don't know all the ins and outs of the disabled person parking permit process. Lieutenant Kim Montez with the Florida Highway Patrol is here to educate us on those details. And Kim, we've just been chatting about this. There are some things I knew, some things I didn't know. But basically, what is a disabled parking permit?
So the disabled parking permit is a legal permit for people who have applied with a disability to park in certain places that have the handicap sign, and it also allows for some fees to be waived.
And so what types of, permits are there?
So there's two types. There's a temporary and there's a permanent. The permanent placard is for somebody who's been deemed to have a permanent disability, also somebody who's been deemed legally blind. That permanent placard is good for 4 years and it expires on your birthday, so you'd have to reapply every 4 years. A temporary one's more for people who may have had surgery or a temporary issue. Those placards are good for 6 months. If you need one longer than 6 months, they can be added up to 12 months after that.
Because in fact, I was mentioning that I had a friend who just had knee surgery. Right. Her surgeon suggested getting that temporary parking permit. Makes life so much easier right now.
It does, and there's a process. You go online, you get the forms, your medical doctor will have to sign off on it, and they will actually help you with that placard process.
Okay, so here we go. Let's do some of the do's and don'ts, because we've already talked about it. My mom had a parking permit. And, occasionally she would send me to the store and say, oh, here's my placard, go ahead and use it. And you're saying, no, the person has to be in the car.
The person has to be in the car. It doesn't have to be the driver. Anybody in the vehicle that has a handicap placard is allowed to put that placard around the rearview mirror, and then that whole carload of people can park in that handicap spot. But if the person's not in the car, you can't use that handicap spot.
So that's the first important part of it. And some of the other, do's and don'ts. You mentioned you have to show the placard while the car is parked. Right. But I know we've both seen it, folks driving around Central Florida, and there's the placard still hanging up on the rearview mirror.
That's probably the biggest mistake that I see people make that have a handicap placard. You cannot be driving the car with the placard hanging from the rearview mirror. It's a view obstruction. So what you want to do is have that over the visor somewhere readily accessible, and then once you park, that placard needs to go up above the rearview mirror. It needs to face out so that the ID number or driver's license number on the placard with the expiration date is facing out, so that if a law enforcement officer needed to check, they can do so.
Okay, I never thought about that there's a right and a wrong way to display it on the rearview mirror as well. Okay, now speaking of officers, what are the penalties for folks that misuse this service?
It's a serious offense. We need placards to be used by people who truly need those spots. And we do see abuse. If you are caught using a handicap placard, it's a first-degree misdemeanor. You can be arrested.
Really?
Absolutely. And it's punishable up to a fine of $1,000 and up to a year in jail. It's a serious fine, and we've caught several people doing that. We also have caught people that fraudulently make those. You can report any of those suspicions to myflorida.com and the flhsmv.gov if you suspect somebody is using it fraudulently.
Well, that's what I wondered, because, sometimes you will see somebody, I want to say they're not thinking, they are in a hurry, they pull into that handicap designated spot, and they shouldn't be.
Again, those spots are for people who truly need them, and if you take away a spot from somebody who doesn't, just because you're in a hurry, it really does a disservice. It's against the law. We want people to realize that law enforcement can check. Florida is probably one of the best states because we put that ID number or DL number on that placard, and we can check and see if that person's in the vehicle.
See, that's great information. And Lieutenant Montez, thank you for giving us an overview of the disabled parking permit system. Now we know the rules and regulations. Thanks again.
Thanks.